Hey, good morning. It's Fort Worth Playboy. This is the Fort Worth Playboy Morning Show, and we um, we will get right into it today because it's going to be a tight schedule. So, the Fort Worth Playboy Morning Show. What do we discuss here? We discuss game pickup, relationships, and sex. And when I say we, it's me and my Playboy's Bunny. We kind of switch back and forth on this about every 6 months or so on who's running the morning show. And tomorrow she'll be here with me. We always do better together. She'll be here with me at 7 a.m. and we had the morning hustle together. So if you have any questions during this show you would like me to answer, and hopefully I can get to them during the broadcast, please go to YouTube, Fort Worth Playboy on YouTube, and I can answer your questions there. If you type it into Twitter, I won't see it. And we fall under the umbrella of the red pill. The red pill encompasses MGTOW, men's rights activists, any type of intersectional dynamics, be it psychological, economical, sociological, all the big debates. But the one thing Bunny and I try to avoid is any of the big picture items. We prefer that we focus in on game and sex and the on the ground experience that people have, that be it you're moving a girl that's a stranger to in your bed and naked, to working on a 20 or 30-year marriage, and reigniting it and improving upon it. So when you come to our timeline, or like this show today, I want you to be able to walk away with something that you can apply today, and improve your game, relationships, pickup, or your sex life. So one of the big four. And that, I think we're pretty successful with this almost every day. Some days better than others. So I'm going to jump in. We always start with a maxim because I always try to convey that the basics, you always focus on the basics at least some point in any type of training. Just like, when you go to the military, you go to basic training. You almost always drill down on a basic every day. If you play baseball, you've got your basic fundamentals. That's really what we should call it, is the fundamentals, because every day you have to touch on the fundamentals at some point and build upon that. It's just like football, like blocking and tackling. Everybody has to touch that at least once a day when you're training. So we do the same thing in our little world here. We try to touch on the basics. So maxim, let's see if I can read it through these glasses. Hang on one second, and here we go. Maxim number 43. You rely on pickup lines to eventually discard reliance on pickup lines. Chateau Hartiste. And that's part of basic training, because a very common, very early question is, what do I say? What do I say? How do I react to this? How do I react to it? And that's what I try to convey to gentlemen is you can use lines, and almost all lines are either in like my book, Basic Training 1 and 2, or any of the Chateau books, the best of Chateau. There are lines in there that you can really, just like, and basic lines are like, Roger that, or 10-4, or dismissive lines like, I don't want to get you pregnant. These are little quips mentally that you can use to counter any, be it a shit test or a provocation, or some girls like getting off base, or like, thanks for the medical report. If some girl starts talking about sex too early and she's trying to bait you into this to see how hard up, how horny, how beta you are, and you're like, hey, thanks for the medical report. So anyway, so you can use lines as a base, and you don't ever have to abandon them. I mean, they're always good, but basic lines will allow you time, and it gives you a response. But eventually, I've noticed most guys will come up with their own. Kind of like another example is common questions were like, a girl goes, so why are you still single? And you go, I'm just lucky, I guess. You need your lines, because you're going to hear the same questions from these girls over and over. And sometimes it's not really like an alpha dismissive line. You're always going to be asked what caused the divorce. They want to see if you're like going to like start, pouring out everything about your divorce. You just go, hey, my wife and I, we grew apart, and it didn't end. It ended, and I wish her well. And then you change the subject, because there's no reason to like delve in on bad or negative things. And they really are kind of like just trying to dig to see if you'll, if you're still mad at your ex, if you're still hooked up on them, if you're still seeing them, well, we still live together. So always have your patent lines to common girl questions. And again, you can research your lines either through one of my books. You can go to Fort Worth Playboy at Fort Worth Playboy on Twitter in the search box and look up lines, because I always try to, when there's a good line, I always try to share it, or share some if we've gathered 3 or 4. But use lines because they work. It just makes your life easier. You can steal lines from other players. It's part of the game. You hear something that some guy says in response to a common question, use that shit if it works within your frame. If it works for you, use it. It just makes your life easier. That's why we tend to use scripts. That's why, and this messes all kinds of men up. They're like, I don't know if I can. But these are guys that like might talk to like 2 girls a year. And you talk to 2 girls every 10 minutes. So you have to understand that their need for conversation is far less than yours or mine. That is the real deal, where guys go, oh, I don't use lines. That's just, and believe it or not, these girls have never heard this before. They've never heard it. There's so many dudes out there. There's so few men that actually get it like we do, that they've not heard it. And if they have, they forgot, because they're girls and they're just like really interested in what they're about to say next anyway. So lines work. You rely on pickup lines and response lines to eventually discard reliance on pickup lines. And it will be a natural progression. You don't have to like go, God, I can only use these the first 6 weeks or 6 months. If it's working, that's all that matters. If they're laughing, they're giggling, it's a good response to their question, then that's all you need to know is you've got a winner, you stick with it, and just wear it out until you find something else that you like. So the real deal is, yes, we use lines because they work, and they work with a multiple number of women, and it will work to your benefit, and it makes you look more attractive, and you're doing that girl a benefit by becoming more attractive to them. So everybody wins, and that's the real deal with pickup lines. If you want some lines, definitely check out Basic Training 1 and 2. You can find that at fortworthplayboy.gumroad.com or any of the best of Chateau Hartis books that I've compiled over the years. That's the real deal. A large group of men that I talk to, because there's just a large group of divorced men, is recently divorced men in their 40s, and in this case, it's usually late 30s, 40s, 50s, normally have a number of unique obstacles to overcome when getting back into the game. Overweight, bad posture, low energy, sallow complexion, no muscle tone, Velcro closure shoes, you're not dressed well. Outdated clothing, confidence, identity has taken a major hit. All of these are temporary shortcomings that can be fixed with direction and time. And the good thing is, just like Dan Kennedy says, do many things at one time. It's kind of like guys, the younger guys will go, should I just focus in on my career or making money and like ignore girls for the next 5 years? And I'm like, no, that's a bad idea, because you're going to end up with a little bit of money, a little bit more than you probably would have if you had dated, and no bitches. So instead, you can have some money and you can have a lot of women. So do multiple things at one time. And number one thing is we always try to address right off the bat, because the vast majority of American men are overweight. The vast majority of American people are overweight. It really does set around 90%. The government's not going to tell you that, because then there'd have to be a reaction to that and actually change. So they say something like 30 or 40%. But if you go to the mall, you go to the airport, you'll look around, it's 9 out of 10 people. If you're in shape and fit, you're an anomaly. You're the outlier. We're the outliers. We're it, And the only reason you see other skinny people is because you live in Boulder, Colorado, or you participate in lots of endurance sports, or, you're 22 and you're in the military, there's reasons, but the vast majority of America is fat. So overweight, that's the first thing you have to address. You start having to get the weight down, because nothing works. Your dick doesn't work. Your VO2 doesn't work. Your muscles don't work. Nothing works when you're fat. So that's the first thing to address, and it will have the most major impact on your self-confidence. Bad posture, that'll come with you getting into the gym and hitting the weights. Why do we hit the weights? There's so many different exercises you could do to actually lift weight or to rebuild your body, but lifting weights is the most direct and dramatic method we have. Low energy, your energy is going to start coming back as you start exercising regularly and improving your diet in order to unfat yourself. Sallow complexion, again, most guys have been indoors the last 30 years. So getting outside, and again, exercise itself, and you feel better, you'll get outside more often. But most people's complexion looks horrible because, one, they have no circulation, they're overweight, and their diet is trash. So you'll see this as nearly immediately. When you clean up your diet, your skin will improve, and you don't even know how bad you look until it improves. And you're like, holy shit. No muscle tone. That will be fixed very quickly with weightlifting and unfatting yourself, so you can actually see the muscle. Shoes and clothing. You actually kind of have to focus in, and don't believe the hype. There's guys that are always like, oh, dressing well is homosexual and all that. No, there's a baseline of self-respect that you dress in a manner, and you don't have to like a jacket and a dress shirt are not necessarily your style, and that's okay, because there's a number of styles guys do, like day game style, they do nightlife, they do like Harley bike rider. I mean, there's all these styles, or I guess that's the right word, is style. But you find what works best. There's rock star. I mean, like if you look at Rollo does not wear that. He looks like a rock star. He is, that's his persona. So he looks more like a rock star. He looks more like a guy in a band than a guy that boots up a laptop every day to work from a coffee shop. So, you have to find what works for you. And you can try a couple different things until you're like comfortable in your own skin. Confidence and identity have taken a major hit. And a lot of this is fake it till you make it. You have to become irrationally self-confident in order to move forward. And that will come with time. And you won't always have the evidence in front of you to have that confidence, but you have to fake it anyway. All of these are temporary shortcomings that can be fixed with direction and time. You can do all of this, at least get, a foothold within 3 to 6 months after a divorce. The faster you start moving, the less you wallow around in your own misery, the better off you'll be, because it can become a morass. You want to hit the ground. There's no recovery period. Men don't need recovery periods. They need to get to work. They need action. Women, they can do whatever. They're already riding dick the day of the divorce is signed, if not before. And that's their recovery period. That's their hobby. That's what they do, is replacing you. So you have to put that out of your mind. There's no grace period. You need to get to work if you want to feel better about yourself. And the girls, well, that's an entire world of its own, but this is mostly for you, because the better you feel about yourself, the better you'll come across the world and the more you can get done. But that's the real deal with divorce recovery, is a lot of it is a physical manifestation and getting to work physically, so you can get some outcomes. And it's usually pretty quick. Guys are built for action. And if you're overweight and you're never out in the sun and you have no muscle tone, a lot of it's because you haven't been taking action for the last decade or two. So that's the real deal. Talk about mindset. The number one lesson you can learn from women and apply to yourself: when something goes wrong, a guy doesn't like them, shitty date, guy pumps and dumps her, crap marriage, hostile divorce. No matter what, they never blame themselves. You'll notice this. They never take any responsibility. And quite often, especially when it comes to women, neither should you for their actions. She turns you down, she's got bad taste. She flakes, she's retarded. She ghosts, her boyfriend just got out of jail. She divorces you, she can't keep a man. You'll see whoever divorces you will divorce somebody else, 6 months, 2 years down the road. It tends to be a chain reaction. None of these things that a woman does are necessarily your fault. She'll want to fault you. She will blame you for it, but it's not actually your fault. One thing that in the last couple of days, for whatever reason, YouTube is an interesting phenomenon. It's recommended lots of court videos to me for some ungodly reason. And what is a common denominator, and maybe it's just that's what women and men will watch, it's almost always women making bad decisions and then everybody else paying for it. Not always, but the vast majority, especially in the civil cases, it's a woman meeting an ex-con and running off with him and leaving her kids and her husband, and or she loses her job, so she asks for more child support. It actually has nothing to do with him. It's her making a bad decision, and not just circumstances, but reacting to the circumstances badly. And then everybody else pays. And then you're like in court, and they're actually like using the government as leverage. So one thing I have seen, and that's, again, it's not all, but a lot. And that's really what I've always tried to convey to guys, is that like a lot of, when you're dealing with normal, average women, is just keeping them from harming you, your business, your life, through their bad decision making and not letting it get too far out of hand, and keeping them on the straight and narrow. So that's the real, and they never do not expect women to take responsibility, because I've watched these court shows and it's like hours of testimony, and I've never seen a woman say yet, yeah, it was really my fault. I really shouldn't have done that. There's none of that. So I don't know if it's just not in them, or if, the default for the women that actually end up in these situations is to never take the blame. But one thing you can learn is when women do things, they flake, they get the ick, they disappear, they break up with you, 99.9% of the time, it had absolutely nothing to do with you. They'll blame you, but that's irrelevant. It really has nothing. They had a change of mind. A different prospect came on the scene. Their baby's daddy got out of jail, and they decided to give him another shot. There's all kinds of things. And it really can come down to something as simple as ghosting, where some girl disappears, that you just started dating or you're about to meet up with her and she doesn't show up. It has nothing to do with you. It's nothing you said, nothing you did, nothing you look like, nothing has nothing to do with you. It's something going on with her that she reacts to and goes. That's because they're flaky. So that's the real deal. Women are like children. It's not their fault. I mean, you would not put a 4-year-old, out there and expect them to make good decisions. And that's pretty much what you're dealing with women you don't know, is you got to make sure that they don't step into traffic. They don't run the credit card for $35,000 in one day. They don't go out and buy a car. They don't like wander off and end up with their fucking feet behind their ears with some ex-con. You have to actually kind of like keep an eye on them. These guys go, dude, I'm, that's not alpha to like actually worry about other women. You kind of things that are of your interest and somewhat your responsibility. Yes, you do actually keep an eye on it, make sure that it doesn't fuck things up. And that's just being mature about it. You got to know. Like I always say, girls are about 17, 18 mentally, and that's not, they're all over the place. Your average 17 or 18-year-old girl. And they're that way when they're 18, 28, 38, 58. Same thing. Exact same. And you'll see this. You'll see older players, way older players going, yeah, that's why I discovered as girls are really the same at all ages, which means they don't get better. Again, nothing they do is your fault. You may have to clean it up. You may have to straighten them out, get them back on track. You may have to actually pay the fine or do whatever, needs to be done to kind of get their feet back under them. But it's not your fault. They'll blame you, but it's not you, it's them. And a whole string of bad decisions. One thing that you need to learn, especially if you're dating in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, all divorced women were married to abusive narcissists. This is their default post-divorce setting. What do you think she's going to say? Really, it was my fault. I should have been a better wife. Ignore her rationale and keep qualifying her. Just understand that other than a handful that and I mean like 2 or 3, this is like, you can stamp it. Every girl that's been divorced ever was married to a narcissist. They don't know what narcissist means. They don't know what the definition of it is. It's just something kind of like, I want a guy that makes $250,000. They don't know what it is. They have no concept of money, but they've heard it. One of their girlfriends said it. So they repeat it thinking it sounds good. And I was married to a narcissist. And then the abusive is usually separate. He was abusive. Well, did he hit you? No, he raised his voice. There's different levels of abuse. And I'm not negating any of this. I'm just saying that it's good to clarify. And you don't have to be skeptical or anything or like shit on their story, but you should get some clarity, because like we think of abuse, we think like black eye or being thrown downstairs or, physically abusive. And it's good to get clarification on what these words mean to a lot of people. But you're going to hear the word narcissist literally 99% of the time. Just go ahead and gloss right over it. Just don't even react. Just keep on trucking through the conversation, because it's something that they've heard. And it's literally universal. I've known maybe 3 girls that didn't use the phrase at least once, maybe 2. And for whatever reason, and it may just not be a word that they use, or they never felt that way about it. But that's the real deal. So don't put any weight on it until you have more information. I mean, there really are narcissistic men out there. Make no mistake, women love them. But is that the reason for the divorce? That's questionable. So all divorced women were married to a narcissist. She'll usually follow up later in the conversation about how abusive he was. This is their default post-divorce setting. Because like we say, what do you think she's going to say? Really, it was my fault. I should have been a better wife. You're not going to hear that. It's just not going to happen. Ignore her rationale and keep qualifying her. This is one of those things where you have to kind of, and I know this sounds kind of crazy because we're always like, if you want to kind of like be around quality women, you have to qualify. This is one of those things that you need to like box up, and you can set it over here because it's kind of a mess no matter what. So girls have trouble like conveying what's really going on. So especially if you're kind of like new with her, take anything she says about her divorce, unless she just goes on and it gets kind of crazy. You can box it up. He's an abusive narcissist, and move it over here, and then focus in on the other stuff. Just know that that'll come back around most of the time. And you're going to see this too. There's a lot of alcohol involved. Almost, every girl that I've ever gone out with has had an alcoholic boyfriend, father, husband, long-term boyfriend, baby daddy. There's so many alcoholics out there. It's hard for a girl to date more than 2 or 3 people and not come across one that the alcoholism doesn't affect their life negatively. So 2 things. That's why I tell guys to be careful about your drinking, especially in the beginning. And 2, remember that may be something they don't mention right off the bat, but there's a lot of like alcohol involved in a lot of these bad decisions all these people are making. So abusive narcissist is 100% guaranteed going to come out of their mouth. They don't necessarily know what it means. So you box it up, set it to the side, and then address it at a different time when you have more information. And that's how you deal with that. And you're going to deal with it 100%. I don't know if we actually have enough time for this. We don't. I'm going to have to start with this tomorrow. This is unfortunate, but this gentleman is a private investigator, and he's just kind of anecdotally, which is where you usually see things because people report things falsely. They don't mean to. But what he's seen on the ground when it comes to divorce and divorce investigations and, in the process of getting divorced or, cheating and infidelity. And then we kind of broke it down. It's really good. And we will begin with that. I believe tomorrow that would not be a bad thing to start with. If you like this, like it, share it. Please subscribe. Tell your friends if you got a buddy going through a divorce. It's a good show to watch. We cover that a lot. Guys going into that transition period. And if you like this, support this channel financially, or you need information on how to solve a certain problem, FortWorthPlayboy.gumroad.com. I always tell guys, if you're not sure where to start with basic training 1 and 2. It's 100 tips, points, paragraphs, lessons on game, dating, etiquette, and it lays down a foundation that you can build off of with everything else. So if you're not sure where to begin, that's where you begin, is basic training 1 and 2, and it comes in a bundle. I appreciate your time. It's all the time we have for this morning. I appreciate you watching. Your time is valuable, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Me and Bunny, it's a lot better with her on here. More eye candy at 7 a.m. Hope you guys have a great day.